When you don't know what a cut from the deck of fate may show. When you don't know what it is that's coming next for your adventurer in Dungeons and Dragons, then sometimes a trusty fireball is best. But there are spells with hidden power, things that you may never see and never use if you do not learn their secret ways. I'm speaking of spells of the weather gauge. Let us now probe the spellbook's depths. I'm the Complex Games apologist. Now there are a lot of spells like Clairaudience and Clairvoyance, or Bestow Curse, or even Invisibility that may seem to be fairly limited in their scope. But when you and your adventuring party are calling the shots about what comes next, they can be incredibly powerful. They can circumvent entire encounters. They can allow you to decide what the field of battle will look like when you encounter your opponents. Now, spells like Conjure Elemental, which made the Nerdarchist's list of most infuriating or useless spells. Now, the reason that the Nerdarchists believe that a spell like Conjure Elemental is bad is because you could cast it and it only lasts an hour, and the GM could run down the clock. Now, I don't know about you, but I may stack the deck of fate as the Dungeon Master, but I never change the order. And I hope that you're playing in a game where that's the case with your Dungeon Master, and he doesn't know when you're going to cast a spell. Yet sometimes, because of the actions of a canny ranger, or because you have a spy and informer in the enemy camp due to clever preparations before the adventurer, you may know what's coming next in the deck. And sometimes you can become the Ace of Wands. You can be that caster, which, almost like the unfolding of the big plan at the end of Ocean's 11, for example, you can orchestrate a perfect blitz. And it can be sort of frustrating for a novice dungeon master to believe that everything has been shattered in a single blow by these spells. But the truth of the matter is that most of us dungeon masters, do not change this order because you've made a plan. And especially if it's a secret plan. Okay, GMs, let's have a quick heart-to-heart. Let me tell you why this is a great thing to see at your table. It's not a bad thing, and it's not unbalancing. The first thing about game balance, okay, think about the power level of a fireball, okay? And think about what the outs are, okay? There's the radius of the fireball. There is the saving throw, which is for half. And then there's the targeting. You know, you have to kind of be able to see what you're shooting at in order for it to work. All of those are things in the information flow of the game that are taken for granted. You know, you can see a clump of kobolds. Kobolds are not very independent thinkers, and they clump up. And more to the point, after the character has rolled his damage for the spell, the kobolds save and take half or not. And if you use Fireball as a yardstick for how good these information spells, these spells of the weather gauge can be, think about it. If you roll a die, it'll be half as effective. If the party knows the thing that they're shooting the spell at, if they are pointing their clairaudience, they're looking through the Palantir stone at the commander's chamber, then it's likely that they're going to see something. And the area of the spell is large enough. In this case, think about the duration of Scry. And this goes back to my idea of seeing is believing. In the rules, we have something called clairvoyance. We have something called Scry. We have something called Magic Circle. And it's meant to do a thing. And the rules have equipped it with some things to make it happen. It's your job as the dungeon master to understand what the place of that thing is. It has a place in this world, or else it wouldn't be in the rule book. Okay, next thing. The player has paid an opportunity cost to cast the spell. He's not going to be casting, for example, a high-powered second-level spell. Instead, Spiritual Weapon has utility in every single fight for a cleric. So Clairaudience, Clairvoyance, being a second-level spell, means that there will be one fewer Spiritual Weapon coming from that cleric. So think about what he's given up to get that, and think about what it should be worth. Seeing is believing, again. But take this as an opportunity. Remember that the player is sacrificing in fantasy and magic in order to do this other thing. So the balance is already built in to the opportunity cost. Okay, final thing. This is an awesome opportunity for you to feed the players half-truths, for you to give them a window into the humanity of your villains. Maybe show that they have a love affair going on with one of their henchmen, and you can see that there's these secret passions and idiosyncrasies to the world that happens behind the curtain when the players aren't looking. It'll give them empathy. It'll give you the opportunity to introduce new NPCs and new levers on the plot. This goes not just for information spells, but other things like Magic Circle. If you cast Magic Circle when, say, the evil Fae are about to assault the golden tree at the heart of the woods, and they are stopped under the light of the full moon and they have to retire when the eclipse begins and they have to run away, maybe there's a moment where you get to have a conversation with these evil Fae and learn their origin, learn the foul pact that trapped them in this existence where they wake every eclipse to assault the golden tree. That sounds like an adventure hook, doesn't it? Use these spells as an opportunity and you'll be loving it too as a dungeon master. So you should feel secure to use these spells, which I call the weather gauge. Before we look closer at how to use one of these and what kind of situations they might be incredibly apt, and perhaps you as a dungeon master might be able to nudge the player characters in a given direction by giving them a scroll of one of these, let me first explain why I call these the weather gauge. In the age of sail, giant vessels would be sailing upon the ocean, and of course the wind might be blowing this way, but the ship wants to go this way. And that's easy pickings for a vessel with a rudder and several dozen men up in the masts, pointing and aiming the sails and so on. But what happens if another ship over the horizon spots your mast and is upwind of you? They can choose all manner of things about the battle, the engagement that may come. They can bombard you with chain shot for hours from their bow chasers. And you can't do anything except run with the wind. You can divert from your course and hopelessly give up on ever getting to whatever port you intended to go to. That advantage of initiative, of being able to decide when the battle happens and be able to just peel away whenever you like. If you are the upwind vessel, that is the power. That advantage of being the upwind vessel, that is the same power that you will enjoy sometimes in your Dungeons & Dragons game. And while it may look like something like clairvoyance can only be a good second level spell once you are a 9th level caster, there are times where it will be incredibly powerful. Take, for example, the idea that you want to discover when the forces of Tiamat are going to assault another town in Horde of the Dragon Queen. You might be able to stalk closely to one of their many encampments and cast clairaudience at what appears to be the commander's chamber. You may not get perfect information, but you may hear something very valuable, and at the very least you might find out who lives in that room. And over the course of several days, if your party is careful and observing from a listening post, you might be able to build up a very good plan for how to infiltrate this dungeon. But there will be places within your own campaigns, regardless of what direction they take, regardless of what kind of storytelling the dungeon master chooses. So let's take a look at one of these spells and look at how it might be used and how it is good. I'm going to look at Magic Circle, which seems to be a very difficult to use spell. You create a 10-foot radius, 20-foot tall cylinder of magical energy centered on a point on the ground that you can see within range. Glowing runes appear wherever the cylinder interflects the floor. So I think it's very clear that this is the sort of thing that you would cast before you summoned a demon. But there are so many other paradigms where it would be incredibly useful. It blocks outward assaults and inward ones. Say that there is one of those midnight rituals under the full moon that the dark cult needs to complete. If an eldritch horror is going to burst into this world from another at the completion of their ritual, having this magic circle hidden perhaps underneath of the cultists when they cast the spell could create a very foul surprise as the eldritch creature devours the cultists to a man trapped inside of the circle. That's but one example of the sort of things that you can try and do when you know what is coming next in the story. Now, there will be wrenches in the works, but I believe that making a plan and executing it with the incredible magic that you have at your disposal in Dungeons & Dragons is one of the most amazing things you can ever do. And it's far more exciting than throwing fireballs all day. I'm the Complex Games Apologist.
Thank you for checking out my channel. If you enjoyed what you've seen here, maybe check out one of my in-depth video essays on topics in the tabletop gaming world, or subscribe with alerts so that you get updated anytime I put up new content here on YouTube. And above all, let me know what you think about this topic and about my videos in general by leaving a like or a dislike, and especially your own opinions in the comments below.